Hi, Zelina. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. So, what we're going to do here is I'm going to interview you, ask you a few questions. You can go ahead and start by introducing yourself so the class can get to know a little bit about you.
Hello, classes. I'm Zelina. I grew up in Orange County, loving the beach, anything outdoors, and had a very big passion for anything related fashion, ever since I was little growing up. So, kind of knowing that's what I wanted to do, coming out of high school, but not exactly having the exact direction that I wanted to go in, but knowing I had a passion for it.
I can definitely relate and understand that. I felt very, very similar. I remember growing up, and my mom and I would go shopping and do little fashion shows when we came home. But yeah,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to make that a career sometimes isn't the easiest thing. And that's why it's great to have guest speakers like you, because you can give us a little bit more direction on what you did to get where you are, past jobs that you've had, and just any advice. So first, why don't we start off with explaining to the class, kind of what your job title is and what you do right now, and then maybe we can kind of backtrack a little and talk about things that you've done before that, or how you kind of got where you are now. Whatever way is better chronologically for you to explain.
Okay, I'll start from the beginning then.
Sure.
So coming out of high school, as you mentioned, it's kind of this like questionable career path of which way you're going to go. I even remember presenting it to my parents, like, I think I want to go in the direction of fashion. And they're like, what the heck is that? What does that mean? And honestly, I had no idea myself. I always heard a FITM. If you want to get into fashion, you have to go to FITM. So I visited the school. I remember taking my parents. Again, not really having any sense of like direction of exactly what I wanted to do. So I went to Orange Coast College for the first 2 years after graduating from Newport Harbor High School here in Orange County. Um, and I got my GED, and my parents were very like strict. You got 2 years to figure it out, and that's it. Like, we're not giving you any more time. You have to do this. So after I finished my GED, I really, really grinded it out for those 2 years. And Long Beach State had come up for different options for myself. I was kind of looking everywhere. And I was really set on FITM for a second, but I knew someone that had gone through the fashion merchandising program at Long Beach State, and it was close to home. Um, and I kind of knew, like, okay, if this is the route that I'm going to go and it's not going to work out, well, then I can try something else.
True.
So I went to Long Beach State and I got into the fashion merchandising program. And it was a brand new world for me. Very different, honestly, from what I expected. I thought I was going to go to class and be like creating garments and all
Mhm.
these things when I quickly learned it was a lot more business related,
Mhm.
and I was very excited about that. Taking like marketing classes, business classes, but all
Yeah.
pertaining to the fashion world kind of opened my eyes up to what I wanted to eventually do. So that was kind of the start of it. I graduated from Long Beach State, and quickly after graduating, I got a job at a small boutique. It was a very fast growing boutique. Some of you may be familiar with it. I don't think they're open anymore, but it was called
Mhm.
Angle at the time. It was a owner who I think opened about like 20 stores in 1 year. I mean, he really, really went crazy. And when I first got hired, I was just an associate. That's what I was hired to do. But I thought that it would gain me a little more experience while I was going to college, figuring it out. Just a small time, part-time job. Um, so I went there as an associate, and as I mentioned, he quickly started opening up stores
Right.
where he was like, "Hey, all hands on deck. I need you guys to start doing this, doing that. And lo and behold, I just start merchandising their
Wow.
stores.
Wow.
So he was like, okay, any store that I open, I need you there to merchandise these stores. And that's kind of how I got this like merchandising mentality and this passion. Like, oh my gosh, I'm working with clothes, obviously, but I'm getting to like create these spaces with all this product. So it
Yeah.
was so exciting for me. And while I was working there, I actually got offered an interview from this woman. She was a district manager at the time for Guess Jeans. And again, I was still going to school while working at Angle, and I knew of Guess. You know, it's this like
Mhm.
profound company that is well known. It scared me. I was like very, I was so timid, like, oh my gosh, I can't go to a corporate world like Guess. There's absolutely no way. So it was kind of interesting. While I was working there, she became like my like customer.
Oh, wow.
We exchanged numbers and I was kind of like her personal shopper. So it was interesting. We gained this like really great friendship and relationship. And she always would tell me, like, whenever you're ready for guests, let me know. So I kept in contact with her for about a year, but again, I was finishing Long Beach State at
Mhm.
this point. I was a senior. I was so focused on, just graduating. So finally I graduated and she was still my customer and she presented me with another offer and asked, "Can you just interview, try Guess out, see what you think of it?" And this was actually for a field position at the time. So I had told her what I had been doing at Angle, and she told me, no worries, Guess, we have really great merchandising positions, programs that I think could really, really elevate your talent. So I did it. I took the guest position after interviewing. I think I went through about 3 interviews and I got the position as an assistant manager. So it was a small position, but at a large company.
Yeah.
So I definitely knew that there was potential for growth, but again, it was kind of the unknown of what I was walking into because I was coming from this very small boutique to now this very large company that again everyone knows about and it's a world known brand. So I started off as an assistant manager and over seven seven years I worked my way up through the stores. So I started off as an assistant manager, became a co-manager. I was in that position for a while, and then I became a store manager, which is obviously the highest level of management within a store. So that
Right.
all happened within a span of about 7 years. And I was doing all things merchandising. Again,
Mhm.
what I was super passionate about. So when you're doing that for stores, you're going in, you're setting up the store. So, the corporate office will provide a directive that you will follow. It doesn't necessarily have to be to a T. Obviously, store layouts are different for every store within the
Right.
company. But it is a sense of direction of where the product needs to get placed. Also how to dress the mannequins, like any mannequin looks. And you're resetting your floor every 2 weeks. So
Wow.
yes. So that's when like fresh goods are coming in, new product, whatever that may be pertain to, you're refreshing it every 2 weeks. And then within, you being this manager and a visual manager, you have, a small team that will work beneath you. So
Right.
it will be about anywhere from 3 to 5 people because you are refreshing your entire floor. That's your women's department, your men's department, your accessories department. So, it could be a big task. But it was usually within like a 4-day period. And it would be me and my team doing that. And again, over the 7 years, I was just working my way up through management, and I was rotating through a lot of different stores throughout Orange County. So
Mhm.
I was my last store that I was store manager in was at Citadel Outlets, which is located in Commerce, very close to our corporate office,
Okay.
which is in downtown LA. And they consider that the Citadel Shopping Center. We still consider it as our flagship stores. So there was a ton of exposure from the corporate office that, I mean, you're talking about vice presidents, buyers, anyone that you could think of that would be in a corporate office would go there on their lunch breaks,
Mm,
would stop by there after work just to see the store, see how the layout was looking, look at their product, talk to us to understand how business was
mhm.
going. So going there, it was so much exposure from the corporate office, a
Right.
ton. So you gain relationships and
Mhm.
you're seeing these familiar faces constantly. So as I was a store manager there, I think for about 2 years, I gained a lot of relationships, very close ones, where after my 2 years at Citadel, I was presented an offer to go to the corporate office, which that was the peak of my career because working in a store was fantastic. You're understanding the customer, you're understanding just guess itself. But I had been in the stores for so long. I mean, 7 years is a really long time. I'm very proud of everything that I had accomplished within the store, but I definitely was ready for something else and a different challenge. So when I went over to corporate, I was presented a product manager role, which was new for the company. It was brand
Mm,
new. There had never been anyone in my position.
right.
We had just onboarded a new vice president who had come from Zara, and Zara apparently has a team of product managers. So he was trying to build this team of
Mhm.
product managers. So there was four of us only hired for this position, which I was honored. It was
Yeah.
a really great position. So what a product manager does, at least for guests, I think it may vary between companies, but again, this was a new position for us. So we were in charge. We were essentially like the liaison between the stores and the corporate office. So we were the person that was gaining all the information from the stores and taking it back to our buyers and our allocations team. So this would be anything from a store voicing that they didn't have the right product assortment.
Mhm.
For example, maybe we're in a state like Miami, Florida. They don't really have a winter,
Right.
but we're sending them all of these sweaters, like these big, bulky sweaters. And they're like, we need shorts. We don't need sweaters.
Mhm.
So our job was to essentially assort the product and understand their needs and send them the right product that they would actually sell. So
Right.
maybe in the wintertime, it was like a lighter weight sweater
Right.
versus like this big chunky one. So for guests, we had for Guest Factory, the division that I'm currently still working for, we have 220 stores.
Wow.
So it was a very huge,
Yeah.
large job for me. Um, and again, it was a new position, but I ended up making the position my own.
Great.
So it was very exciting. It was extremely challenging.
Mm,
Um, and it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, and it was a lot of trial and error. But we did it. We were really creating this strong team. The field was really relying on us for all of their product needs, and the corporate office was coming to us for so many questions
yeah.
like, what does the store need? Does this store have the right product assortment? What can we do better? Then it became this really exciting part that I was so thankful to be a part of. I got to sit in on all of our buys. So
Yeah,
with
cool.
the buyers, so they would show us, our lines coming up and say, okay, this is what we're presenting for, let's just say spring 2025. Do you think that this is going to work in our Florida market, our SoCal market? And that was beyond exciting for me. It was amazing, 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 amazing. However, I was missing that merchandising part. I did give that up to become a product
Right.
manager. So there was a small part of me that was, missing that aspect. But again, I was still so excited to have, this new opportunity with guests. And then COVID hit.
Yay, fun for us. Oh.
Yay. So COVID hit, and you talk about the most challenging time I mean, you could ask anyone in their career, it was scary. For me personally, I was furloughed,
Mhm.
and I was furloughed for about 3 months, and then through those 3 months, they had asked me to come back, which I was so thankful for, but for a new position because they had X'd out the product manager
Mm.
position.
Which is
So,
such a shame because it sounds like have they brought that back by any chance?
so they have not, but
Mm.
there is a lot of talk about it, which I will definitely tell
Okay.
you about. Um, but I was so sad, but yet I was so many different emotions.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to take whatever position I can get.
Yeah.
At this point, I had already been with guests for like 10 years,
Yeah.
so many years were already put in. I just took whatever it was. And luckily it was for a visual merchandising
Yay.
position. So it was kind of like the stars aligned for me
Yeah.
and kind of brought me back full circle.
Mhm.
So I joined the merchandising team, and after COVID or through COVID, the team was really, really small. It was only three of us that could be brought.
Wow.
Yeah, we're a very small team. We are up to four now, but again, we're covering 220 stores.
Yeah.
So I'm still in that current position, loving it, so thankful for it again. So with this position, with the visual
Yeah.
merchandising position, I am now a manager as well. I have been for the
Amazing.
past year or two. My timelines may be a little off. I've been with guests now for a total of 12 years. So it could be a little off, but
It's okay.
yeah, I don't know.
Judging you on that.
I've been there for a very long time. Uh, um, so within the visual merchandising, we're merchandising and operations. So what I love about this position, we still partner with the buying team, with the allocations team, but we have a bigger focus on the store layout. So another layer to it is we work a lot with our construction and design team
Mhm.
of guests, to really understand how the stores should be laid out, to best understand how the merchandise will be exposed to the customer. So we are really in everyone's business, which I love because I love the partnerships that we create within this position. And we work so much with the field. Obviously, I came from the field, so
Mhm. Mhm.
they are like my number one priority, and we have such great connections with them. So your hands are really in everything.
Mhm.
So we work a lot with them, and then we meet with the buying team, to essentially like 2 weeks out of every month, to decide and figure out and collaborate of how the store layouts should look. So we are the ones that are essentially creating the directives for all of our 220 stores. So we have showrooms at guests,
Mhm.
that we work in. We call them our creative rooms, and they're like mock-up stores. and we go in there with the product and we will place the product, decide where it all goes. And we will send these directives out to the stores. We're the ones that are creating all the mannequin looks, all the window looks. Everything that the store has a visual of is coming from us, our team. So it's quite a bit of work at the office, but it is very enjoyable. I've loved every second of it. And recently, we will actually, for the foreseeable future, really, we are changing the concept layouts of any new store that we open. And then we also are doing that to any store that we've had for 10 or plus years, or any store that is considered like a big volume door for us. We are going to be remodeling these locations. So I've been traveling quite a bit this year, doing these remodels, working with our construction and our design team from like the very start of it. I'm talking about like blueprints. We're looking at this, deciding where tables, walls, jewelry fixtures, cash wraps should go. Like, this is a whole new world for me that I am
Yeah.
absolutely loving. And the traveling part is great. So we've been to New York, we've been to Canada a couple times. I leave to Oklahoma on Sunday. And like I said, this is for the foreseeable future. Our founder is very passionate about opening these new concepts. So it's a really exciting time for guests. As everyone knows, the economy is a little crazy right now. But Guess is definitely finding innovative ways to kind of keep us afloat. So yeah, it's a really good period for us. And like I said, being there for 12 years and still having this excitement makes me very thankful for where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and it just like it almost seems like the story comes full circle with, you're working in the store, and I think especially when you're working retail, you're not necessarily quite sure what you like, what you don't like, but the fact that you really pinpointed what you liked, and
Yes.
your journey didn't always take you that way to this point, but now you are doing essentially what you were getting directive to do while you were in the store.
I
So
know. It's
um,
so crazy. It's so crazy to be here. And I think that's like the biggest thing, I've for you guys, in school trying to figure it out, is merchandising, fashion, whatever world like that avenue takes you. I think it's a lot of trial and error, like so
Mhm.
many points in my career, I thought I wanted to do this, but I got led to a totally different direction, and that's okay. I
Yeah.
think it's really okay to try things out in the fashion industry because there really are a lot of different positions within, a corporate world or even at a
Yeah.
store level. There's so many different avenues that you could take. So don't be afraid to try them. It could be something that you absolutely hate, or you could actually find like your dream career within that. It's kind of just a risk that you have to take and see what happens.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And I think sometimes because we have these two routes you can go with, either design or merchandising, students don't fully grasp and understand how much potential there is and how many different types of positions and jobs are within those two routes. And I think what you mentioned
Absolutely.
about the trial and error is a good suggestion. I do know, and I want to ask you about this. A lot of people I interview talk about like getting pigeonholed when they do that. Do you have any particular advice? If you went a route and you weren't liking do you have any particular advice on how to not like get pigeonholed into that position?
I mean, honestly, I think being having these conversation with, let's say you're working in any sort of corporate world field, wherever you're at, I would really recommend having these open conversations of like, maybe an idea or direction of where you want to go, but also being open-minded. I think my biggest like success has been creating these relationships and keeping that
Right.
open dialogue for them to understand, like, I'm kind of open to any avenue as long as like I'm passionate about it. I'm willing to take the risk, but just be very open about it. Don't be afraid to, be in a position and just stay there. If it's not working for you, voice it. My other thing is it may not happen right away. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't don't have these expectations of like, okay, it's happening tomorrow. I remember being in the field and I had it. Like I was done. I was really really questioning like, do I go to a different company? But I've spent so many years here and I really wanted to go to corporate, but they had kept telling me over and over again, like, we don't have anything. There's nothing for you at the office. Like, you're just going to have to wait it out. And I was questioning so much, but I was like, you know what? My time is going to come. It's going to happen. I'm constantly having these conversations with my peers, with, my bosses that this is my end goal. This is where I want to be. So definitely don't be afraid to keep that open because I think they're always going to hear it and know and hopefully keep in mind like, hey, this person has been such a great partner to me. If
Yeah.
something does open or if something is created, I'm going to call that person in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, um, in how you touched on that earlier, those relationships that you built, I think that's so important because then when you're voicing that, they have this background relationship with you, whereas it's not just some person they've met once or twice at the store saying, "Hey, by the way, I want to be corporate. I want to go to corporate." So,
Absolutely.
yeah, those relationships are drastically important in our
They really
industry.
are.
Hmm.
They really, really are. I can't stress it enough.
Yeah.
And we have these values at Guess, and one of them is about like creating this family within your company. And I talk about it all the time, as cliche as it sounds. I think that's what's kept me at Guess for
Mhm.
12 years. Like I feel like that place is a second home for me.
Yeah.
And again, it's these relationships that we've created. A lot of us have been there for a very long time as well. So you kind of watch each other grow, and
Yeah.
it's just been a huge blessing there.
That's a testament to a good company as well when people stay.
I'm
Um,
talking like 30, 35
yeah,
years. I
that's
only have
amazing.
12, but we have
And
we
you're
have
like the
some
new kid on the block with
exactly.
12.
Yeah, we have some tenured people there. So yeah, it's great. Yeah.
All right. So you already kind of talked about other departments you work with. So that was nice information because I think sometimes students think they're going to be on this like lonely, or they want to be on this lonely little island, like, designs just its own little thing or merchandising or, visual. So that was awesome. Thank you for sharing
Of
that.
course.
Um, okay, we went into your career path, we went into your education. You kind of talked about what keeps you motivated as well. Um, you already kind of talked about the struggles and hurdles. Anything else that you want to add about struggles and hurdles? Sometimes it's nice for students. I mean, we kind of just touched on that with the fact that no jobs were open. So I don't know if you have any other kind of struggles or hurdles.
I mean, struggles and hurdles, they're going to kind of come and go. It's
Mhm.
never going to be this like cookie cutter situation. So, again, I mean, my biggest advice is to kind of ride with the punches. Like, if you know what your end game is, if you know that this is the company that you want to be with, start from the bottom,
Yeah.
work your way up. It can happen if you put in the time, if you have the determination, if you're passionate about it, you can really get to that goal of where you want to be at. It's just, for me it was over a course of 8 years. That's a long
Yeah.
time, and for some people that's like, oh my gosh, that's your whole lifetime. But through all of that, I had different positions. I was going
Yeah.
to different stores, I was getting different experiences. So it may not be at the level that I started at because I started, really from the bottom. But again, it's gonna take time for sure. So
Yeah.
don't get discouraged. It's just part of the game.
Yeah. And I think working your way from the bottom is something that a lot of students need to be familiar with and learn. Um, I don't know if you remember back to your time at Cal State Long Beach, but how students have to do the retail practicum class where you have to have a retail job. And sometimes students don't want to have to take that class because they're like, well, I already had a retail job over the summer, or I
Yes.
don't really realize how this applies when I want to work in corporate. And it's like, but it all goes back to the store. The more that you
Mm-hmm.
understand about the store, and the fact that you can, you can elevate yourself from having that experience in the store is just so valuable and so important, and you are a testament of that theory
And I
that
And I will say now working in the corporate office and I'm going to speak for guests because I don't know
yeah.
if this is how every, retail company is, but for us, our priority is to hire within.
Mm, which is
So
awesome.
yes. So whether that's, in the field level or whatever that may be, we are always trying to hire within because they understand guests. They
Right.
understand the product, they understand the company. So for us, it's a much easier transition to hire someone that has done that, that has been with
Absolutely.
us than coming from an outsource. I'm not saying, that you can't have this successful career going into, a company that you've never been to, because I've seen that plenty of people, but for our company specifically, we love hiring within because it just
Right.
makes sense for us. So, again, starting from the bottom for myself was probably the best decision and the greatest outcome for where I'm at today.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, I've noticed from my time in the industry, and maybe you have or haven't because you've been a guest for so long and so many people as well. But even like people I've worked with that leave the company,
Mhm.
they then come back and like try and recruit people, right? Instead of just hiring someone from LinkedIn or some person they don't know, they actually kind of dive back into their connections that they've had at past companies, and they're like, okay, I liked that person, let me try and
Yes,
pull them. I liked that person from this other company, let me pull them. So it's still the contacts and connections you make along the way that a lot of
absolutely.
times can impact, if you're going to move to other places. So
Yes,
yeah.
you are. Yeah, you hit it spot on. You're absolutely right.
Okay, so are there any suggestions that you have for students, maybe just in general, or I do notice a lot of times what students are fearful of or have a hard time with is like getting their foot in the door, like that initial, um, yeah, for like an internship or like, yeah, any advice that you have just or suggestions overall.
Well, I know again, I'm speaking for guests, but I do know a lot of companies have summer internship programs.
Mhm.
Guest has a really great one. Um, we actually are in the middle of it right now. I think they finish in the next 2 weeks. But if I didn't have, this random relationship that I had met in in the store where I'd met, the district manager, I
Yeah,
would definitely take the opportunity to do an internship.
yeah.
Um, for us specifically, we hire, I want to say about 80% of the interns that we bring on.
Wow.
So
Wow. That's amazing.
yes. So I've seen the internship program since going to the corporate office. And that was my first thought when I got there. Like, gosh, if I had dug in a little deeper and, kind of researched different internship programs,
Yeah.
that would have been my first thing to do.
Yeah. And it's a great way to like you might love Guess as a brand and whatnot, and then do the internship and find out, okay, this structure might be a little too big for me, or wow, I really love
Mhm.
this. But yeah, it's a great way to short term get to figure out if it works for you as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for us, we have our internship program kind of covers every department. Like you can be an
Cool.
intern for buying, marketing, allocations. Like we will have like a huge, I mean, really every department you can intern for what you're
Cool.
interested in. So if I were to take my first, like if that was my first thought, like what do I
Mhm.
do from here? I would definitely do an internship.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Um, Is there anything that like you wish you would have known about this industry before you got into it? Like things, sometimes students can learn so much in class, but there's some things that you just don't know about our industry until you get into it. Is there anything that you can think of that you're like, gosh, I just wish I would have? I'll give you an example. I give this example all the time
Mhm.
to my poor students hear it all the time. But like I didn't know that the fashion industry, if you worked in the corporate world, I really thought that it was like a 9 to 5. I didn't realize that like I was going to be going to trade shows or having
Right.
store visits. Like I really just thought it was 9 to 5. Like I actually remember a girl at PacSun coming into the bathroom crying because she had just got a puppy and she was like newly hired. And she was like, I'm going to have to figure out a way to like get this puppy to my family because I'm never home. I'm always here and I can't take care of the puppy and it's peeing all over the place.
Oh
And that was
my.
my first like mind blown. Oh no, this is not a 9 to 5. I want a dog too. What do I do?
Yes. Well, similarly enough, I thought coming out of college, the only job that was available to me was a buyer. I was like, I have to get out of school, become a buyer. I don't even know like essentially what I'm going to do as a buyer, but I think that's all they offer. And I was so convinced that was it. So please,
So when you're working in this store and you're like getting the directives from the visual merchandising team, and but you're still like buying, that's all.
yeah, I'm like, these are coming from buyers. That's it. Um, please understand
So
there
funny.
are so many positions in the corporate world, like if Guess is obviously a retail brand, but maybe you're passionate about marketing. Like
Yeah.
you're, creating all these images and doing all these really amazing things. All that's pertaining still to the company and product, but you're not physically touching clothes. So
Yeah.
please don't ever think that the corporate world is just full of buyers because it's not.
And I can't tell you how many students think that.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then they're all like, "Oh no, I'm not good at math. What do I do?"
that was what I was because I'm so bad at math. I'm like, I'm never going to have a career in fashion. I'm done. So yes, that was a crazy moment in my life, but please don't have those. There are so many positions within, and I'm not even just speaking for guests. I
Yeah.
know that within all the corporate retail worlds, there's plenty out there.
No, that's a good one though. Thank you for sharing that one
Of
because
course,
so many students do. And then
I
they get
know.
to that buying class and they're like, I'm not sure I like this if I
Oh
made
yeah.
a big mistake.
Oh
Yeah.
yes.
Um, okay, so if you would like to be honest with us, because you did share a lot of the best things about your job, but are there like some things that maybe you don't like, or you like it all?
um, well, I mean, I can't say I have a bold personality, very bold personality. Um, but I have to say, and again, this could just be in my world, we have a lot of passionate people on our team from the buying world, allocations world. So I can't say that I dislike this, but it can be a struggle, at times, like for everyone. I mean, at the end of the day, and sometimes I'm like scratching my head, like, how did we all come to agreement? Uh, but there's a lot of passionate people that all want the same end result. But sometimes voices aren't heard, whether
Yeah.
that's mine or someone else's. So yeah, that can sometimes be a challenge, but I think that's always going to be the case when you're working with large teams,
Yes.
and trying
Yes.
to come to one end goal.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of different mishaps that can happen. But again, we have a strong team that makes it work and we get the results that we need to. So again, I don't know if it's a dislike, but it could be a struggle. I
Yeah.
don't have this, I really love my job.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of dislikes for it, you know, but sure, there are challenges and that could
Yeah.
be one.
Yeah, anytime you have a team. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a large company, a small company. Um, Actually, it's why I feel at school group projects are so important. A lot of
Yes,
students don't necessarily enjoy them because they have a hard time sometimes communication style or how they work or who's going to be the leader, who's going to take direction. But it's our world. Like
yeah,
you're always going to be working with people, even if you owned your own company, you've got to hire people to work for you. So you're right. That's not like it can't really be this is like the worst thing about my job because it's going to impact anybody in any position anywhere, but it's a great thing to bring up that you do have to learn how to navigate different personalities, different working styles, different communication
yeah,
styles.
absolutely. And it's a big one, you know,
Yeah.
collaboration, communication. You know, I honestly think like my communication has grown just working at this
Yeah.
company. I don't know if I have the same communication skills 10 years ago as I do now, but I think I've gained this, you know, just again, creating these relationships, collaborating, you know, it's really, really important.
Yeah.
Um, and I think going into corporate, I was scared, I was timid, I didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's something that you grow over time, but don't be afraid to use your voice. You know, I
Yeah.
think that's kind of how I've stuck out amongst other people and why people come to me for, you know, opinions or whatnot, because they're like, okay, you know, Zelena's going to let us know, you know, what she really thinks or how she feels, or is she, you know, in agreement with everything that we're doing. Like it's a collaborative effort. And,
Yeah.
you know, try. I know it's hard. And again, I did it in the beginning as well, but use your voice. Use
Yeah.
it for sure.
Yeah. Well, I will just share with you the worst thing about my job when I was in the fashion industry is this was kind of becoming the like initial time period where we could do everything on our phones.
Oh, yes.
And when corporate was like, we're gonna give you a cell phone and we're gonna pay for it, and at first I was like, this is amazing. This phone is
Yes.
awesome. And then I had to travel to Europe for work. And they were like, and by the way, we can get a hold of you 24/7. And I was like, oh, this phone is now the worst thing about my job.
Right? I mean, even during COVID, it was so hard, you know, like for before I was furloughed, you're like on Zoom, you know, you're doing all these things when you're used to like going into the office, touching the product, working with your people.
Yeah,
It was like, whoa, this is not okay. So, yeah, I think it's a really important, you know, part of any career that you go forward with, you know. It doesn't just have to be this industry. I mean, collaboration, communication, I mean, that's going to be a necessity for any career path.
absolutely. Okay, well, I think that's about it from my end of questions, unless there's anything else you want to touch on, but you did a fabulous job.
Thank
Uh,
you. And I'm so, you know, again, whatever career path you guys take, just grind it out, do the work. It will all work out somehow. Magically, it will all come full
I
circle.
know
So
it's so strange when you like put it out there, and I don't mean just like put it out there in the universe, but when you like talk about it and you tell people and you make those connections, it's wild at the end of the day. Like if you really do know what you want and you tell people what you want in an appropriate professional way, it does
absolutely.
seem to start,
The
manifesting
pieces, yeah,
itself.
the pieces fall.
Mhm.
Somehow, some way it all falls. So I really wish you guys all the best of luck. It's a great career path, whatever you
Yeah,
choose to do, but it's a fun one for
it
sure.
is. Yeah.
Yes.
I thank you so much for doing this. I mean, we've been friends for so long and I've known so much of your journey, but there's pieces and parts that to be honest, I thought you were always with guests. So I didn't know you were with Angle before. So it was
Yeah.
fun for me to get to learn a little bit more about your journey. So I really appreciate it, Zelina.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you even asking me to do this. I always love talking about it, but thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
again.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. I will stop recording you now. And yeah, thanks again.
Okay.